Welcome to Clarkston Speaks. I'm your host, Shawana Cowie. Joining me in the studio to discuss the City of Clarkston's and DeKalb County's 2017 and 2018 preview are Keith Barker, City Manager for the City of Clarkston, Commissioner Kathie Gannon, DeKalb County Commissioner representing DeKalb's Super District 6, that includes the City of Clarkston, and Commissioner Steve Bradshaw, DeKalb County Commissioner representing District 4, that also includes the City of Clarkston. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Shawana.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
This question is posed to each of you. From a financial services provided and overall perspective, what is the state of the City of Clarkston and DeKalb County?
Yeah, Keith, what's going on in Clarkston? Y'all have money this year?
Well, yeah, I'll be happy to start. And so obviously Clarkston has a much smaller budget than DeKalb County, but we're in good financial shape. We have benefited from some strategic annexations over the last couple of years that have really helped to broaden and diversify our tax base. We have been able to manage a balanced budget. We've even realized a budgetary surplus over the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
We've been able to lower the millage rate, and we're still working on lowering that rate even more. And that, so for short term, we are really doing well from a short term financial perspective. We're now beginning to look long term,
Okay.
and we have engaged the services of a financial advisor, and we are poised to present a financial plan and some recommendations at our February meeting that will include some analysis regarding our debt capacity. In conjunction with that, we right now have an RFP out for our very first bond issue. We're looking to do a $5.5 million bond issue associated with the SPLOST, and we hope that we will develop policies that will ultimately culminate in Clarkston achieving our very first bond rating.
Great.
So overall,
Cool.
short term and long term, I think we're doing very well.
That's nice. That's nice. I think we're in a good place in DeKalb County. We've had our millage rate the same for the past several years, so that has worked out well. One of the things that used to be a problem, at least for me, from my perspective, and often a reason why I did not vote for the budget, was that we're required to balance the budget, and we always do. But sometimes we do it with structural deficits hidden in there, where we use our rainy day fund to make up for what we don't have in income. And our new CEO has worked with us to eliminate that practice, and I think that's one of the better things we've done in terms of stabilizing our financial situation. People need to know what the budget says is what it is, and that we're going to have a fund balance. And then you get to the end of the year and the fund balance is gone. But this year, what are we going to have, Steve?
75 million.
75 million.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's really good. And we've got a pretty good bond rating. We're not back up to AAA, but we're on our way. You want to add anything to that?
I would concur with my colleague Commissioner Gannon that the fund balance is robust at 75 million, that some of the things that were current in the past in terms of getting us to balance, a lot of those issues have gone away.
Okay.
I think the CEO practices conservative fiscal governance, and with us as the Board of Commissioners to provide oversight, I think as a tandem, we're focused on making the budget say what it says so people can read it, it's transparent. Also, I'll add that I think from a commissioner's perspective, oversight is a little bit better. Our committee structure is working better within the Board of Commissioners, so we get to look at the budget in its component parts with the various departments that fall under a committee's jurisdiction.
Right.
So that gives us a little more oversight, and I think that process is working better.
And one of the things that we're doing for the geeks in the room is financial policy. We have not updated our financial policy since I've been there. And I noticed there's a question down there somewhere tell us how long we've been around. But through our committee, our financial audit and budget committee, we are going through and developing the financial policies that we need to have in place to guide the county, and so that we can better have oversight, because we have a set of principles that we're following.
Okay. So what are some of the key milestones and accomplishments that the City of Clarkston's City Council and the Board of Commissioners have achieved in 2017?
I'll be happy to take this one first.
Sure.
I'll give you my perspective. I think one of the key milestones is that the Board of Commissioners is functioning properly.
Okay.
I think that a lot of, what's the proper words? Let's just call it mistrust, dysfunction that has been visible and present in previous iterations of the Board of Commissioners have pretty much gone away.
Okay.
I think I'll speak for myself. I've got absolute respect for the other 6 members of the BOC. We're 7 different people with 7 different perspectives and approaches, but I think we all come to the table with a desire to do what's right for our districts and for DeKalb County as a whole. And I think we're getting big things done without acrimony. So I think that's a huge milestone.
Very nice. I'll just add also to it from a services on the ground kind of perspective, and working with Clarkston. I think this year we were able to undo that block of the blockage that we had with our 285 path. And it was great to drive over here today and see the construction going on over
nice,
there.
right?
It's going to be great. And the photographs of how that's going to look and some of the streetscape for Clarkston is phenomenal. And it took us a long time to work that one through with the railroad companies, et cetera, and CSX. Yes.
Right.
So that was great. And we also had a great opportunity to work together on the SPLOST, the special local option sales tax that the community just passed this past November. And so it was great because all the cities really had to come together, and we did try this once before, and there was some legal technicalities as to why we couldn't do the SPLOST, but we also were not all on the same page with the cities. And so having Clarkston right up there with us makes a big difference.
I think from the City of Clarkston's perspective, and I'll try to speak from the mayor and city council perspective as well, there were several key initiatives that they forwarded in 2017. One of the ones that they're proud of, and I'm happy to see, is a minimum $15 an hour wage ordinance. And so I think that was very well received and very appropriate for our employees. We're very concerned about making sure people have a livable wage here in our city. Another initiative was the Fair Employment Practices Ordinance, otherwise known as Ban the Box, where we're making sure that people who otherwise have not had an issue, that maybe previously have had a little bit of a run-in with our criminal justice system, have fair opportunities for employment opportunities.
Right. And
not only is that an internal policy, but that also is a requirement for some of our vendors that we contract with as well. And then one more that I would add is that we've had some restrictions on giving out beer and wine sales licenses. We felt that the City Council felt that there was a proliferation of those types of businesses in Clarkston, and there were efforts to restrict that. Beyond that, I think we're very proud of some of our tangible construction type projects we've completed. We finally received a notice to proceed to do our streetscapes project that we've been working on for over 5 years. We're very happy about that. That's a $9 million project. The City Council formed an urban redevelopment agency, and our first project is a redevelopment of the 15-acre wildlife sanctuary Friendship Forest, and that project is due back, is bid out right now, and the bids are due back in a couple of weeks. And then lastly, I'll mention that the city was able to successfully get a specialized DDA legislation in this past session.
And a DDA is?
A Downtown Development Authority, which would allow us to have a DDA. Cities can have a DDA, but we wanted a specialized DDA, which it gave us the ability to tweak the mandatory participants of that DDA. We wanted a little bit more participation by our elected officials.
Okay.
So those are just a few that I would mention.
Those are
And-
some great
And
accomplishments.
I'd love if I could add one thing just here in District 4. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do with parks this year. I
Yes.
inherited a significant amount of unspent park bonds
Okay.
money, and we've been spending it for its proper purpose. So far, we've given significant allocations to John's Homestead Park, Hairston Park, the Little Creek Horse Farm, the Hamilton Rec Center, and we're really proud of being able to disperse that funds. And there's plenty left, so hopefully we'll be able to do more of the same in 2018. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to do is we sprucing up our parks, because parks are a great quality of life thing for the community. So.
And while you're on District 4, I'll add Brookside Park is the
Oh, yeah.
news park that I was able to work on. And so this year we've added just a little bit more for a dog park to the park over there on North Decatur Road.
And I forgot one, Wade Walker Park, which is the largest park
Great.
in District 4. So we're very proud of what we've done in the parks there.
Those are some outstanding accomplishments, but we know that in working those accomplishments also there can be challenges. So what were the challenges that you faced in 2017, and were they resolved if they were, or how were they resolved, and what do you foresee some of the challenges that may be in 2018?
Well, I'll be happy to take that. I'll allude to what my colleague Commissioner Gannon mentioned earlier with the SPLOST. I think getting that passed, getting through that entire process was a challenge, because that the citizens would have voted for it was not a foregone conclusion.
Right.
We had to put a plan together. We had to go out and make it plain to people what the upside was, because nobody likes their taxes raised, even if it's for perceived good things. So going through the visioning process and the planning process was significant. I give the CEO, I give our BOC leadership tremendous credit for bringing the municipalities on board, so we had the sense that we're all in the same boat together. I think that was significant. And when it passed with an overwhelming margin, I think it was testament of the work that was done on the front end. Now, to flip that over and say, okay, well, what's the challenge for 2018? From my perspective, it's to execute properly.
Right.
I mean, the voters have given us, a vote of confidence, but now they're going to wait and see what we do. So how we execute, the transparency of that execution, the quality, efficiency of that execution are things our citizenship is going to be watching. And I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders across the board to make sure this is done properly.
I love that military background. Don't you?
Yes.
I'm going to step backwards too in terms of challenges, because we had to restore a little faith and trust
Right.
on the part of the citizenry. We came out of a pretty bad time over a number of years, and the trust factor was not very high. And so I think certainly new leadership on the board, new board members added to that. The new CEO has added to that. And we all have been working very hard to put our best foot forward and work together for the people. We're not there for us individually. So I think that has helped. But we had an ongoing problem with our water billing. We've had ongoing problems with our water sewer issues in terms of the federal consent decree. And just needing to pull those departments together and get a good plan and some accountability to start dealing with those problems one by one. And so we've spent pretty much the whole year working on those two issues. And seeing some of that dissipate, I think, has helped our citizens say, okay, we'll give you a chance to spend some more money.
And keep resolving those issues in 2018.
Exactly, exactly.
I think, Shawana, from Clarkston's perspective, let me mention two things. One is our biggest need is attracting development, smart development.
Okay.
But at the same time, balancing the needs of affordable housing options for our citizens. And so sometimes those can be at odds with each other. One of the questions you asked was how have we resolved those, and we think that we are on the cusp of resolving both of those and also leveraging the two. We have an opportunity just recently at the end of the year to consider a fairly significant, about a $22 million townhome development. But at the same time, there's still this need for affordable housing. And so we're looking at some policies, we're looking at some inclusionary zoning policies that may either give a developer an opportunity to create affordable housing opportunities on that project site, or in lieu of that, we're looking at creating an affordable housing trust fund where a potential developer can pay into a trust fund, and that the city then will take that funds from that trust fund and develop policies to promote affordable housing, such as down payment assistance and maybe housing rehab programs for the disabled, the elderly, the veterans, et cetera. And so we're turning what is a challenge, and we hope that we're going to turn that into
A positive.
a positive and an opportunity in 2018.
I like that, because then we're going to borrow it from you. Affordable housing is on my list for this year to give attention to. I've worked a lot in sustainability and in parks and those kinds of things, and affordable housing's been on the list, but it always keeps getting bumped down because there's so many other things. And it's hard. It's a really challenge
Sure.
to
Yes.
figure out how to do it in a fair way. We've been able to with our developments, pretty much handle the senior housing
Okay.
aspect of it. But the affordable housing always meets with a great deal of both resistance on the part of the development community, as well as difficulty in actually implementing it in the long term. So that's something that we need to, in DeKalb County, also spend a good bit of time on, and I hope this year is the year to accomplish that.
So besides the SPLOST efforts that was discussed earlier by you, Commissioner Gannon, and Commissioner Bradshaw, and City Manager Keith Barker, what collaborative efforts, and I know that you just mentioned the affordable housing issue, were undertaken by the Board of Commissioners and the City of Clarkston in 2017 that will continue or be implemented in 2018?
Well, certainly the path that we've talked about before.
Yes.
We've been collaborating on that one for a very long time. Clarkston and I've worked together to get a little bit of sidewalk put in over here by 285, and that should
Yes.
start any day now. That's the next one on the list, to add a little more to that sidewalk over there. So those are a couple things that come to off the top of my head.
I'll concur with those, and just to broaden the lens a little bit, I think collaboration has a fundamental baseline in relationships. So now I happen to live just outside of the city limits of Clarkston. I'm not in the city limits, but I have a Clarkston address. I know the mayor very well. I know the city manager pretty well.
Okay.
I know most of the city council, although there's just been a turnover, but it's a matter of having a relationship, and not as recently as this morning, I got an email from one of the new city council members introducing herself, saying, I'd love to get together with you so we can start building our relationship. And I immediately agreed to do that. So I think that's where it starts, because at the end of the day, the residents of the city of Clarkston are also residents of DeKalb County, just as they are residents of the state of Georgia,
Right.
just as they are residents of the United States of America. So anything that can be done to break down the walls of parochialism so that we start to look at our issues, as they're interrelated to each other, I think that's all good, but it all starts with relationships.
And I'll just echo what Commissioner Gannon indicated. That's what I had in my mind to
Okay.
mention, is that PATH project. And there are a lot of parties that came together. I mean, not only DeKalb County, but also CSX Railroad, the PATH Foundation, the City of Clarkston, and
Some legal
It's a-
people.
We
a
need
lot-
them.
A lot of attorneys
A lot of
involved over the
attorneys.
last 10 years. And so it's like making sausage. You don't want to hear the story over the last 10 years of how we got to this point. But I think if we look forward, I think we're going to see a project that I think we're all going to be very proud of. And you see where Commissioner Gannon, they've started to do the bridge installation
Yes,
already. They're
yeah.
starting to lay the
Right.
pillars on 285.
It's very exciting.
And then
By the way, I think it's going to be closed tonight.
yes, it will.
At 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock, thank
9
you.
o'clock, 285 on ramp
Yep.
is going to be closed. And so, but when it's, it's amazing how these things come together. And a piece that we haven't talked about, and that even Commissioner Gannon and Commissioner Bradshaw may not know about, is that at the same time all of this was coalescing and coming together, we also had conversations with the International Bible Church here on Rowland Street. Mm-hmm. The National Mission Board actually is in the process of purchasing that property, and they have on their drawing boards a fairly significant multi-million-dollar development that will be a nice additional piece to the Green Street Path corridor that we have planned. So it's just sort of amazing how all of these disparate entities can come together, and the result will be there's really what I call sort of the Clarkston pathway right here in DeKalb County.
That's great.
Before the SPLOST votes occurred, there were some in around Clarkston that voiced concern with SPLOST funds being managed and or controlled by DeKalb County elected officials. What would you say to those who still have those issues and concerns?
Not to worry.
Not to worry.
DeKalb County will have control over DeKalb County's funds.
Okay.
And the cities will all have control over the city's funds. All the funds are divided by population.
Yes.
So Clarkston will have their pot, and they will have control of that. In DeKalb County, we put together quite an extensive list of the different projects that we will be working on. And that is the list we will follow. There'll be some additions, certainly, and elaborations on that. But also, we'll be putting together, I think it'll be introduced at the next board meeting, a resolution for a citizen oversight committee to help add to our oversight, in addition to, your professional project management and financial people and all that kind of thing. But a citizens oversight committee as well, so that they can be involved as well as aware of how much goes into these kinds of things, because we plan on doing another SPLOST in about 5-6 years.
Yes. So sufficient efforts are being made.
I
Yeah,
think so.
certainly. I think professional oversight is important, but I'll underscore what my colleague just said. The Citizens Oversight Committee is going to be really critical, so that we
have that transparency.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of money, and I'll just underscore that by saying, watch what we do, hold us accountable for what we do. I very rarely ask people to trust me on the front end. I rarely ask for that.
Rarely.
So I say, watch what we do,
Okay.
and then judge what happens. But we're all acutely aware of the opportunity we have with the SPLOST, because we want it to continue beyond the 6-year time frame. But we have to prove that we know what we're doing. We have to prove that we can manage this kind of infusion of funds right, and I think all of us are committed to doing just that.
Right. Yeah, I really like the idea of a Citizens Oversight Committee, so I commend the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners for implementing that idea. I think the key word here is transparency. When I held some information sessions, that's what I heard from the residents and citizens, was that transparency. How will you spend the money? And so what we plan to do is that we plan to make project information, both the project construction timetable as well as the financial end, the expenditures, readily available. I just completed, right before I came over here, a document that goes into detail regarding here's how we're going to sequence these projects. This is the cash flow that we are anticipating. Here's when we're going to bid it out. Here's when we're going to do the engineering. Here's when it's going to come. This is the date that it's going to, we anticipate that it will come to the council for approval. And so we're going to provide that level of detail, and we're going to provide that on our website, to where any resident in Clarkston or otherwise can go on our website and they could see the progress of that project. They can see the anticipated schedule, and then they can see the financial data that's going to be attached to that particular project. And I think, let me echo something that Commissioner Bradshaw said, I think the proof is in the pudding. I believe when citizens see tangible projects happening on the ground, and their road improved, then I think that's when the trust begins to improve.
So if you're more visible, they will understand the process.
Absolutely.
So as representatives for the city of Clarkston or DeKalb County, what can you do or are you willing to do to achieve more involvement in civic engagement from your communities?
I'll try to tackle that. You know, that's the quintessential question. How do we get more citizen involvement? You know, we host meetings, and I mean, we have meetings. We're down at the commission every week. They're all open to the public. Our
Yes.
committee meetings are open to the public. You know, I'll be starting an initiative this year where I'll be doing community breakfast. All we can do is hold open the door.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we can do, and it's up to citizens to walk through it. But we need to continually hold open the door and let them know that this government is their government.
Right.
It's our government. That we, as their representatives, aren't alien life forms. We're of them, from them.
Right.
This government is theirs.
Right.
So they should feel always welcome to access it, always welcome to question us, to express their concerns. I think this year, at least in my email inbox, people haven't been shy about expressing their
Right.
concerns, and that's great. That's as it should be. And you know, I learned long ago as a young Army officer, one of General Colin Powell's rules was, when people stop bringing you their problems, you've lost their trust.
Okay.
Because either they don't believe you're going to do anything, or they don't have any confidence in you. So I don't see people bringing me their concerns as an issue. I think that's a good thing, that they think they've got a representative that's at least going to try to solve their issues.
Right. Government is a participatory sport,
It is.
so we want to play the game with the people. And it's good to hear that your email box is full too, because my
it is.
email box continues to overflow. Many of us, of course, have websites that, you know, sort of static kinds of communication.
Right.
So I give out announcements and the board of directors agenda. And I think it's important for people to have the opportunity to see the kinds of day-to-day business that we have to take care of in the board meetings. A lot of it is contracts, but it's all kinds of other things. And people are amazed at sometimes finding something in there that of interest to them or that they knew about.
Right.
And so I think that's important. I do a quarterly newsletter also, but email seems to be the quickest and easiest way to access us. So we want people to do that and ask questions and get involved, because I know not all our meetings are at night. We have zoning meetings at night, and we have a committee of the whole meeting at night each quarter, but a lot of them is during the day, and so it's hard for people. But we do stream, and DCTV, shout out to them, replays our meetings. I don't know what the exact schedule is, but it runs several times during the week. So if you're a real junkie, you can find that show and enjoy it. But yeah, please don't ever feel shy. And I know sometimes, especially in Clarkston, you've got a city here with 100 different languages.
Yes.
So it might be hard or threatening to try and get in touch with us, but please do, and we'll find some way to communicate.
Keith, I'm pretty sure your voicemails are full.
Well, they are, and I encourage that, and I won't repeat what Commissioners Gannon and Commissioners Bradshaw have already said. I think civic engagement and encouraging civic engagement is challenging, but what I will add, that it's especially challenging when you have a diverse community like we have in DeKalb County, and specifically in Clarkston, where there are more than 53 languages spoken at the local high school. And so what I've found to be helpful is to do an assessment, to ask the audience that you are trying to engage, what are the obstacles for them to engage with you? And then look internally, what are your internal obstacles? One of our internal obstacles was that we were a small staff, and no one was particularly assigned to forward that effort. And so
Okay.
we've hired Terry Sanders, and she has done things like create this radio broadcast.
Awesome.
we have tremendously expanded our outreach via not only this radio program, but also with our Clarkston Speaks newsletter, and with our other public engagement activities. We are doing a rebrand and refresh on our website. We are now on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those other social media platforms. And it's important that you have to have someone dedicated to manage that on an ongoing basis. And we're happy to see DCTV here today filming our radio program. But I think the other thing is that I'll just tell a little story. When I first got here, I asked some folks that were former refugees, we're having these public information sessions, and why aren't you coming? But then there are still questions, and I got a surprising answer, and the answer was, well, we're uncomfortable coming to Clarkston City Hall. Now, I would have never thought that, but that was a really eye-opening statement. And so one of our solutions was to begin to hold meetings other places that were less intimidating. We started holding meetings at the library. We started holding meetings at the Clarkston Community Center. We even hold meetings at the coffee shop. And surprisingly enough, our attendance improved. And so I would encourage everybody who's looking to increase their civic engagement, ask the folks who you are trying to engage what's keeping them from taking advantage of the opportunities that you are affording them to provide them the information that they need.
Great. If you are just joining us, this is Clarkston Speaks, a program produced by the City of Clarkston in partnership with Sagal Radio. I'm your host, Shawana Cowie, and we're discussing the City of Clarkston's and DeKalb County's 2017 and 2018 review and preview with Keith Barker, City Manager for the City of Clarkston, Commissioner Kathie Gannon, DeKalb County Commissioner. She's representing DeKalb's Super District 6, that includes the City of Clarkston, and Commissioner Steve Bradshaw, DeKalb County's Commissioner representing District 4, that also includes the City of Clarkston. To each of you, 2018, what can communities in Clarkston expect from city and county officials, initiatives, and policies?
Well, I think 2018 is going to be that big beginning of building, and a lot of that is going to be connectivity between Clarkston and other parts of DeKalb County. So I think what we want to say to people is to bear with us as things get started, because you're going to see streets tore up, sidewalks tore up, construction zones, and people are going to be like, oh my God, what do we get into? But it's all for good. It's going to create something beautiful, but it's going to be a little hectic there for a while. So bear with us on that. What else do we have in 2018? The commissioners all have individualized initiatives as well, but one of the big ones in the county is to continue our fight, if you will, against blight. Somebody mentioned Brandon Hall. Certainly those kinds of places in DeKalb County, in Clarkston, that need to be gone. Just needs to be cleaned up and gone. And so that is what we're working on. It's a long process. It's legal. People call up all the time. Why don't you go and demolish this home? We don't own the home. We don't own the property. We can't even go on the property. We can clean up the right-of-way in front of this dilapidated, garbage-filled yard, but we can't go on. And then, so we have to get court orders, and now we have a new, much quicker NREM process where our legal department is going to be able to go through court and get permission much quicker to demolish properties and things of that nature. So we're going to look for ways to start dealing with blight. Also looking for ways to help all of our citizens participate in that regard by taking responsibility. Personal responsibility for litter is one of my big things, and I think that will go a long way to help us towards that, making our home look nice to others.
Nice.
Okay, I'll underscore a couple things my colleague said. Blight is obviously very huge. Brandon Hill is close to my heart because it's here in my district.
Your home.
I would say some significant progress has already been made out there.
Mm-hmm.
I was just out there last week to see what kind of progress has been made. Several of the buildings that were in bad shape are gone. They've been leveled. There's now grass growing where
Okay,
those buildings
grass.
used to be. Fescue, I think. And we just got a fence put around that horrible sinkhole. That happened in the last few days because of our urging and community development's excellent job in getting that moving quick to help with the public safety out there. It's an ongoing process. The commissioner was right. I mean, there are legal things. We sometimes I think our citizens think we have magic wands and we can just make it all better right away, but there are processes, and sometimes those processes are slow, and that induces frustration. But I just want to underscore that it's all on our radar screens and it's moving forward. I also underscore what my colleague said about expect construction. Expect delays, and oh my goodness, why does this happen now? But once that road is repaved, you'll be much happier.
Yes.
You'll be happy that you put up with that slowdown for a little while. And then some things I'll continue to stay focused on, which are public safety, code enforcement, and development.
And from Clarkston's perspective, let me just echo that one of the first things that we're going to do with our SPLOST funds is that we're going to engage a firm to do a comprehensive transportation plan. And that plan will inform some of our more long-range, longer transportation and road improvement projects funded by the SPLOST. We'll do that with the intent of getting federal and state dollars to leverage and augment those local SPLOST funds. But beyond that, I think I mentioned affordable housing
Yes.
policies. I think that's going to be a big initiative this year. Citizen-driven public safety is something that our mayor and city council are very interested in. And we don't know what that looks like. That may obviously look like citizen review boards. There's even some conversations about citizen patrols, which I'm personally not real crazy about, but if that's what the city council wants to do, then I will support that. But some more citizen-driven public safety is obviously an initiative that our mayor and city council will forward this year. And then the last one, no, I think that's it. I think those are the three that I'd like to talk about.
I've got one more. That the transportation. We finished our transportation comp plan, but right as the economy tanked and had no money to do it. But certainly it's been great to have it there
Yes.
because it's been a platform for us to look at our SPLOST projects. But the other thing we will be doing this year is working on a transit plan for DeKalb County in conjunction with all the municipalities and with ARC. Fulton County has finished one. Gwinnett is almost done with theirs. And we need to make sure that we are right there in the discussion about transit.
Yes.
Because that really, it's time for DeKalb County to look at those priorities and make sure that we are an integral part of the transit plan in Metro.
So how closely does the Board of Commissioners and also the City of Clarkston work with the CEO's office and the executive branch of DeKalb County government?
Well, it's close sometimes, and then sometimes it isn't, depending on the issue. We have
Okay.
obviously, a different form of government
Okay.
in DeKalb County. As everybody points out to us, there's 159 counties in Georgia, and they all have a chairman or manager commission form of government except DeKalb County, where we have a CEO, administrative branch run by the CEO who's in charge of the day-to-day operations. And then we are the legislative branch, but we also have some day-to-day kinds of involvement, basically with budget, approving the budget, but also with all the land use and zoning issues that we are responsible for that the CEO is not. So what I tried to do as presiding officer this past year is to make sure we meet with the CEO on at least monthly, but hopefully more than that, so that we can just have an informal opportunity to talk about these are the things going on in the commission, what's going on that we should know about from your branch. So there's that opportunity. And then we have a COO, which is like a city manager, a county manager, and they are the go-between between the board and the departments.
Okay.
So it's structured to some extent, but also can be very informal. So it depends on the issues.
Yep. With regard to that, with regard to the form of government, yes, we've got a unique form of government. But I'm of the mindset that certainly construct is important, but at the end of the day, it distills to who's in the leadership roles.
Okay.
You know, you can arrange the boxes on the org chart any way you want, but if the people occupying those boxes don't have the right mindset, you know, the org structure is not going to save you.
Okay.
So, having said that, I think we're fortunate at this point in time to have the CEO that we do have. I think he's a public-spirited person, and he's in public service for the right reasons. And I would say that same sentiment applies to my colleagues on the BOC. Construct gets in the way a little in terms of how we're doing, but that can be overcome easily by just talking to each other and not questioning each other's motives. But as far as I'm concerned, my personal relationship with the CEO is fine. We're not golfing buddies, but we can talk to each other candidly. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Either we're moving the county forward or we're not. And I believe that we are.
Keith, your relationship with the...
Well, just a little different in that, obviously, as City of Clarkston, we are a city outside of the county. We're
Yes.
inside the county, but we're not inside county government. But I will say this, that we're very familiar with not only the staff, but the leadership of DeKalb County.
Yes.
At all levels, and I think that we leverage that to our exclusive, to both our benefits in terms of working together on issues. We know each other. We know staff within county government, and sometimes when we run into obstacles following the formal chains of command, we go informally and get the answers or the results that we need. And so I think from that perspective, City of Clarkston works well with DeKalb County at all levels because of that. We're very familiar with each other.
So to stay with you, Keith, as the city manager of the City of Clarkston, what is your professional and personal vision for the City of Clarkston? And then we'll go to the commissioners to give their personal vision for the county.
Well, a couple of things come to mind, Shawana. One is that Clarkston is a small city, small community, but we are in a unique position to be what I call sort of a learning laboratory for some fairly progressive public policy. We have a young mayor, and we have some very talented young elected officials. I think that it was brought to my attention that we may be the first, I don't know this, I haven't fact-checked this, but what I heard at the inaugural was Clarkston may be the first community with a majority millennial city council. And that may be good or bad, but I think from a positive perspective, those individuals are willing to pursue some very unique and groundbreaking public policy initiatives. I'd personally like to see Clarkston continue to develop our infrastructure and our aesthetics and to create future public-private development opportunities here in our community. And then thirdly, now that the SPLOST has passed and
Yes.
we are teeing up a lot of transportation and road repair projects, I'd like for us now to focus our efforts on completion of of our town center redevelopment plan.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yeah, I can distill my vision like this. I want DeKalb County to be perceived as safe, clean, and business friendly.
Okay.
Ooh, that's nice.
Safe, clean, and business friendly.
You could run for office.
I'm considering it. If we can achieve those things, if we can achieve that perception, then we'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Can
You're
I
going to
go
use... No, you can't use it. You have to,
run on my own?
I need your personal vision.
No, I think because I represent half the county, I see a lot of different parts of DeKalb County. And I still firmly believe that our diversity is our strength, even though we don't use it well.
Okay.
There are so many opportunities that we can build on that. and bring people together to address some issues that we need to decide on for going forward, to redevelop a vision, because the county has changed. We used to be a county that provided all of the services for almost all of our citizens. We provided city services throughout the county. Our cities are growing, those both new ones as well as others expanding a little bit, maybe sometimes too much, but we need to get together and talk about what does service delivery mean in our county now? What does it mean to be DeKalb County? And that's a new animal. And then we all need to get together and talk about that so that we can create a vision together. But certainly a vision that takes into consideration our diversity, our need for public safety, the aesthetics that you talked about, which we're addressing in terms of blight and other kinds of initiatives, so that we can build on the kinds of things we've done with sustainability and green infrastructure and economic development. The economy is changing and opening up,
Yes.
so that we can begin now to utilize that for the good of DeKalb County residents, but for the whole county.
So specifically referring to economic development, what has been done or is being done or will be done to promote and increase awareness of by the city of Clarkston for economic development for its elected officials and appointed officials?
That's a tough one.
That's
I'm not going to
easy.
ask you to repeat it.
That's easy.
No, I think one of the things that we did in DeKalb is we put together a strategic economic development plan. We restructured our economic development so that we have we always had a separate authority, but we've restructured in a way that it has its own governance and is not so close to the county pulling the shots, so that it can be independent and focus on the kinds of things that they need to focus on and not get so political.
Okay.
So we did that a few years ago, and they put together what I think is a very strong economic development plan. I think we've been into it now for maybe into our 4 years now, fourth year coming up, third or fourth year coming up. So it's been working well, but it's time to revisit that and review it and talk about the incentives both for good development, but also those kinds of opportunities to build in affordable housing and other kinds of initiatives that are so important to the people. So we've got a good start on economic development, and we need to fine-tune, I think, what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll underscore what my colleague just said. Decide DeKalb is our development arm. That restructure that occurred a few years ago before I took office was the right, in my opinion, the right course of action. I think from a governing authority perspective, we just need to be as supportive of that authority as we can without meddling too much in their day to day. But obviously, economic development is something that's affects all of us. I think in a macro sense, we could do a better job of coordinating with the other major driver of economic development, which is, quite frankly, the school system. I think a lot of times we do things on parallel tracks, but we're not synchronized.
Okay. Right. Okay.
I think in the macro sense, we should look to do a better job of synchronizing our efforts, because you think about what drives people to a community. Certainly, a job and job opportunities. But if you've got kids of a certain age, the very second question you're going to ask is, how are the schools? So we've got to do a better job of coordinating all of the entities so that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction to make DeKalb safe, clean, and business friendly.
Great. And let me just piggyback on something that Commissioner Bradshaw said. I think obviously schools are a big issue. And unfortunately, sometimes on the city level, and maybe even on the county level, we don't have as much input into decisions made regarding the school system as we'd like. And so beyond the school system, then here in Clarkston, what we're trying to do is make ourselves more attractable to potential developers. One of the things is that we have to improve our infrastructure. We have to improve our stormwater system. We have to, again, improve our streetscapes. And so we have to make ourselves more attractive to potential developers. I think the other thing that's very important is that you have capable professional staff. When those developers come to City Hall and they want to talk about development, then I think it's important, even for a small city like Clarkston, that you have trained, experienced, capable people that can talk the language. Because the quickest way to turn off a developer is to be perceived as being unsophisticated and not able to address the needs or questions that they have. I think it's important that we're accessible. One of the advantages that we have being small is that the city manager can meet with a developer. You know, I'm willing to meet with the commercial real estate broker, or I'm willing to meet with an owner, or I'm willing to meet with a developer one-on-one, along with the planning director, to try to identify opportunities and overcome obstacles. And so those are some of the things that I think we're doing here in Clarkston, and we're starting to see some benefits of that, but we're just at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be also in DeKalb County looking at our incentive programs this
Absolutely,
year
yes.
For economic development. We do have sort of county kind of incentives which deal with your water sewer hookups
Right.
and infrastructure kinds of things that we can control. But with our Decide DeKalb board, also talking about the other kinds of incentives to use or not use. Right now, their big incentive is a tax rebate,
Right.
which is mostly funded by the schools
Okay.
because they get most of the taxes. But there are other opportunities, and you have to be careful about how you use them and what you use them for. So that discussion is something we want to make a priority this year, and also to share it with educating ourselves as commissioners and our communities as to how those work. Because I'm sure you go to community meetings, I do. Why can't you bring jobs here? Why can't you bring this store there? And it's really hard for people to realize that the county is not really paying. These are all private developers,
right.
and we have no influence really other than these exterior kinds of opportunities, making the place look nice,
Right.
you know, and
Making the
having
process easier.
easier, exactly.
Mhm.
So that's something that we all need to learn more about and spend some more time on.
There are several policies that are in place, new or those that have been in place for a while and, you know, have had, you know, touch and go amendments. What impact does your role play in setting policies for either the city of Clarkston and DeKalb County? And while you're elaborating on that, could you let us know how long you've each served in your current capacity?
I guess the oldest shall go first.
I didn't say that.
Nope, me neither.
I know. In all areas, I am the oldest. So I've been a commissioner. This is my 13th year as a
Nice.
county commissioner, and I came out of my background is social work, but it was the policy side of social work.
Yes.
So I've always been sort of a policy wonk, and we basically our job is to create the laws, the ordinances, the policy guidance for DeKalb County and for the administration then to follow. So that can be something as individualized as, you know, looking at one of the first ones I looked at is the airport policy on leases. You know, that was everything's a big learning curve. Terry's looking at me like, yeah. I was like, I didn't know anything about it either. I learned something new every single day in this job, which is what makes it great. But how the leases are run, to the fact that we were having issues with our stream buffers and variances were being given away like candy. So we had to get in and work on the variance policy for stream buffers. And then the big policy, rewriting the whole entire zoning code, was a 3-year undertaking, and that's a monster policy book, as well as our comprehensive transportation plan. So we create those policies and those ordinances to guide the county and take them forward. So that's really our job, our main job, one of our main jobs. So we don't get to do policies for the city, but we'd be glad to help you out with it.
No,
We'll borrow some ideas.
We got our hands full. Okay, so I've been on the commission just over 1 year.
Okay.
It's been quite a year. My background in a nutshell, I started my professional life as an Army officer. I was in corporate sales for many years, and I was an adjunct college professor
Okay.
for a few years. In terms of our role in the policy making process, that's our job. That's the crux of our job, is to set policy for the county, and it's humbling. I would just invite people, because I too send out copies of our agendas before our BOC meetings. Our agendas are extensive.
Okay.
And as human beings, none of us has the bandwidth to be an expert on everything. That's impossible. And I'll be honest, sometime in the interim after I got elected, but before I took office, I started looking a little closer at the BOC agendas. It's intimidating. It can be. But, we do our best to be as educated on each agenda item as we can, and make the best decisions that we can on behalf of the citizens of this county and the constituencies that we represent. But setting policy is our job. And, I wouldn't presume to speak for my colleague, but I feel confident in saying she takes it very seriously. I take it very seriously. I think all of our colleagues take it very seriously. And, I'm honored and humbled to be doing it, but at times it's when you get into the minutia of, an airport lease.
Yes.
What do I know about an airport lease? But that's our job.
Yes.
And it's talk about a learning curve. I think my learning curve is slightly less steep than it used to be after 1 year in office, but I'm sure I'll be learning things every day for as long as I hold this seat.
Commissioner Gannon said that also.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We do.
Well, first of all, I take my hat off to individuals like Commissioner Gannon and Commissioner Bradshaw and others who give of their time on a part-time basis to do what really is a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a city manager. I've got a degree in public administration. I've worked in city, county, or state government since 1980. And so for these individuals to do what they do with the agenda the size of DeKalb County on a part-time basis is tremendous.
Yes.
So let me just say that. In terms of my role as a city manager, it fluctuates. Sometimes I'm the initiator of potential public policy, but oftentimes I serve in a research or an advisory role, where you have an elected official who wants to forward a particular policy, a public policy, and I think it's my role to help shape that, help identify opportunities, options, pros and cons, and then to work on assisting them build consensus, both with the community and internally, to make sure that that policy is as good as it can be and gets adopted, and then to implement it. So that's where my role really comes into place, is implementing the public policy once it's adopted.
So while you're there, Keith, I have you. What are the toughest and most rewarding aspects of your job or role as city manager? And then we'll go to the commissioners.
Well, that's a good question, Shawana. At this point in my career, everything is very enjoyable.
Okay.
Okay. The challenges are enjoyable. And I say that because I enjoy the challenge each day that it brings. And as Commissioner Bradshaw and Gannon said, the interesting thing about this job is that you get an opportunity to be exposed to such a wide variety of topics. And so there's a challenge understanding those various topics and coming up with workable solutions. And so it's really not so much troubling, but it's really quite fulfilling to take a challenge and to research it and to work on collaboratively solutions, and then to see those solutions implemented, and then to see them work.
Because the learning never ends.
It never ends.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Okay, I'll take the toughest part first.
Okay.
And I tee this up in my community meetings I have for the last year. I put that question to my audience.
Okay.
What do they think the toughest part of this job is? And the answers vary across the board, and then I'm always interested to receive those answers. But from my perspective, the toughest part of this job is what I call, and I alluded to it earlier, is managing expectations properly. And I'll expound on that for a brief minute. as my colleague said earlier, we've gone through a lot of challenges in the past number of years. A lot. They don't need to be revisited in this setting. But we've had a lot of challenges. And then the people rise up and say, okay, we're going to try something new. I've been in office 1 year. And expectations are high. We got somebody new in office. And they think, oh, every problem I've ever had for the last 5, 7, 9 years,
solved.
all of a sudden that just
You haven't fixed it yet.
that's right, Steve.
It evaporates.
Steve,
The wand.
you should have
The wand.
you should have fixed it yesterday. Matter of fact, you should have fixed it the day before yesterday. And just making sure, you know, that reality about the pace and the processes involved in getting things done, and it's a constant balance. I call it, you know, delivering or painting reality without squelching anybody's enthusiasm or their, you know, desire for things to be better, because it's important. But I believe it's important that the expectation gets set properly, and it's important that it comes from people in offices like ours, because over the course of my professional life, in every single iteration where I've seen things go off the rails is when expectations are misaligned.
Okay.
One party expects X, the other party expects Y for whatever reason, and that gap is what induces all of the problems.
Okay.
So it's imperative that expectations be aligned, aligned to the extent that they can. So that'll be a constant, ongoing mission of mine for as long as I'm in office, and I'll say it in every future community meeting that I have, because I think citizens need to hear that. Now we'll flip it over and say what's been most rewarding, just to see the results of what we've done so far.
Okay.
And one example, so yesterday I was driving down toward one of the communities in District 4, Main Street, and I drove by one of the parks that we've been able to allocate to, Hairston Park. And it was nice to see the things, this construction and stuff going on in the park. And then I meet with, you know, my constituent, or one of the community leaders in that area, and she shared with me, well, because of the allocation that you gave us, we were able to go out and get additional grant money to do additional things in the park. That's really rewarding, to just see something go from concept to now in construction phase, and I'm looking forward to the day when it's all complete and we have a big party out there. But, you know, to be able to do that is the most, it's been the most rewarding part about my service so far.
That's good. All right. Toughest for me still after all these years, I think, is the balance, the professional as well as the personal balance. You can get really, really involved in trying to do things for people. And as Keith mentioned, we are part-time. And of course, when anybody wants to do anything in my home, they always go, well, ask Kathie. She's got the one with the hardest schedule to work around, because it's hard to keep that personal balance when there's so many demands on you. So that's my personal challenge to try to do that, even though I end up usually giving in, like this week. Worked every single day and several nights as well. But it is also very rewarding. And the most rewarding part for me has been, and the part that keeps me going, is the people I represent. Going out to the communities and meeting so many different people, and I'm sure a lot of it is complaining and asking for or criticizing the county. At the same time, they're also very warm and receptive to you coming there to help them. And so I try to use those relationships to build their own infrastructure in their communities, so that they have a Friends of Park program, so they have people who are willing to work on zoning issues. So I did it for a while, was very involved in a lot of community planning, so that the people, they can get their friends and neighbors out to come and participate. And being with people who are interested in where they live and wanting to make a difference is one of the most rewarding parts for me. I represent, as I said, half of the county, so I have been exposed to different cultures, different peoples, different everything, and it's just really been fantastic.
So in meeting those people, I know that you each have probably come into contact with those people who are interested in public service, or those seeking to serve as either an elected official or an appointed official. What advice would you give those individuals who are interested?
Well, I think certainly one of the things is to examine your motives. Okay, because a lot of people think, well, this is going to be fun. It's a good thing for my resume.
I can do that job better.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too, and I'm sure there are people out there who can do it better than me. And my phone number is, if you want to call, I'm always willing to take down names of potential successors. But but that's important to examine your motives,
Okay.
because this is public service. It is not. You don't get paid for what you're doing. I mean, we get paid, but it doesn't match materially at all. And you want to be doing it for the right reasons, for the people who are out there, and depending on what type of public service it is, but you're giving back to the community. You're not collecting chits for your own benefit moving forward, although we all know that happens, and that we get elected people who are more interested in their own agendas than the community's agenda. So you really, that's the place to start. Examine what you're doing it for and why. And there's all kinds of training programs
Yes.
on being a public official, running. Most of them are about running for office and raising money, which is very hard. But campaigning is not serving. So it's two different animals. So you need to take course 2 on how to serve once the campaign's over. But yeah, it's hard. Also, there are opportunities to work with people. Volunteering. We've got volunteer aspects of everything we do. So find that little thing that interests you and jump in and volunteer.
So when I was teaching, I used to tell my students there are plenty of ways to get involved in the public policy arena without putting your name on a ballot.
Okay.
So there are plenty of opportunities to serve. I know we all get to make a number of board appointments to various boards and commissions in DeKalb County. Those are great places to serve. I think the people who've been appointed to those roles find it educational and rewarding. So I would certainly urge that. If there are people out there who want to get involved in politics and in the political process, I'll simply say this. Politics can be rough and tumble. So if you are faint-hearted, find another way to serve. And it's rare that people say this out loud, but I'm going to, because what's at stake, even if it's on a small scale or a large scale, there's a certain amount of power associated in being in these public policy making roles.
Yes.
And as the old saying goes, power tends to corrupt. So, to what my colleague said, examine your own heart, examine your own motivations, because the power is not to be wielded for our benefit. It's to be wielded and shepherded on behalf of the people that we serve.
Right.
And I think a lot of people lose sight of that once they assume these positions that, I'm a big shot now, and they're in it for the title and, the reserved parking space and all the wrong reasons to want to put your name on a ballot and run for public office. But, politics is what it is. We see it played out on a national scale, local scale, and there's a reason why it's rough and tumble. It's a competition for power. So I want to state that clearly and emphatically, so nobody has illusions about the end game. Having said all of that, public service is noble. I believe that to my core. Public service is noble, and when I was in the classroom, I would encourage my students to really, because I taught public policy, is look at local government. We need talent at the local level. And really, you can affect so much at this level. And the issues that we deal with aren't, necessarily the sexy issues, but let your garbage not get picked up for a couple weeks and see how you feel. All right? And we're all dealing with riding over these roads that'll hopefully get fixed with the SPLOST money. I mean, these are issues that, affect people where they live. and working at the local level. I encourage it when I get to speak to classrooms now and students. Look, if you're interested in government, look at local government, because you can have so much impact on people at a level where it works. But I'll just underscore what I said a moment ago. But public service is noble. It just is. And every day, even on the rough days where my inbox is filled with stuff that's not flattering, I'm humbled. I'm honored by the opportunity to serve.
Thank you.
Shawana, let me respond from a different perspective. You had some excellent responses from an elected official perspective, but from a staff perspective, what I find is that there are a lot of people out there who really do not have a real good understanding of the opportunities that exist in the public sector from a full-time staff employment perspective. They know that there are people out there that fix my streets, pick up my garbage, and make my water flow, but they really don't understand or know the opportunities and the positions that make that happen. And so I think I would say that educate yourself a little bit on the opportunities out there. I tell young people that I talk to who are getting ready to get into or looking at getting into the job market or looking at school and looking at college major, look at public sector work, not just private sector. It's a lot more, how can I say, maybe the pay is not as great, but sometimes the job opportunities are a little bit greater. And then the second thing I would say is identify someone in that particular job field that you're interested in. Give them a call. Ask them if you can come and shadow them for a couple of days. I think by doing that, you'll have an opportunity to really get good insights into what that position entails. Along with that, you'll have an opportunity to ask some really good, frank and candid questions regarding the pros and cons of that particular position. I've encouraged a couple of young people to do that in my career, and proud to say that that has been instrumental in them going on and pursuing careers in local government. And so, two things: educate yourself about the opportunities, and then secondly, reach out to someone who was in that field and ask to shadow and then maybe ultimately mentor that individual.
That is great advice. Are there any other final words or final thoughts that you would like to share?
No, I would just like to say this has been fun. Thank you for inviting us.
I will underscore that. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's you guys have a first-class operation here, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to sit here as a staff person with two of our finest county elected officials.
And of course, I'm honored as the host. Thank you for sharing.
You did a very good
sharing
job.
your information with us.
Very nicely done.
Pleasure.
That will do it for this episode of Clarkston Speaks. Clarkston's and DeKalb County's 2017 review and 2018 preview. I would like to once again thank our guests, Keith Barker, City Manager for the City of Clarkston, Commissioner Kathie Gannon, DeKalb County Commissioner representing DeKalb Super District 6, that also includes the City of Clarkston, and Commissioner Steve Bradshaw, DeKalb County Commissioner representing District 4, that also includes the City of Clarkston. Clarkston Speaks is produced by the City of Clarkston in partnership with Sagal Radio. This is Clarkston Speaks. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.